Joe is going to talk about stop waste valves. This one here you see has a little hole in it. That little hole lines up inside with that little hole, there you go, on this side. That is a Mueller brand valve. You see the flow of direction going towards the house, that is where the hole is. The screw locking the cap in that goes through, all the way through into the top, that holds the stem valve handle that goes all the way up to the top, is pointing towards the street. So the valve here shows the arrow pointing towards the house. The screw goes towards the water supply or the street. Now, a common problem here is when this cap here gets a lot of roots growing up underneath it. That screw will wear out and allow this to lift just a little bit. It doesn't take a lot. Okay, once this lifts up and that screw is out, when you turn your valve, it'll allow you to turn it 360 degrees. It won't have a stop. But if you look, right underneath that hole is a little tab. That little tab rides in between those two tangs inside the cap. That keeps the valve from turning more than 90 degrees. So it turn on and off only 90 degrees. That way, when you open and close the valve, that drain port will allow it to drain out of the house and into your gravel pit that should be around the valve. So all around this should be nothing but gravel inside that hole. So a lot of people have a problem. They go out, they go to turn the water off, and the handle just turns and turns. Two things has happened. One, this has come up from weeds and roots growing underneath it, allowing it to just turn. Or two, the stem has actually come out of here and you're not even turning the valve at all. If you turn it and you have water flow in the house, but the hole is filling up with water very, very, very fast, what has happened is you've spun this now the wrong way. So this bleed valve in that hole is on the Water City side. So the valve is closed, but the water is filling up in here quickly. That means that you have turned on the city water to the bleed valve. You can't bleed down the city water. So you need to turn it another 180 degrees, get it set right, and then you need to tap this cap down. Some of these valves are buried as much as 7 and 8 feet up in the northern climate. In Big Bear, where I had this one at, it was buried about 4 feet down. It costs about $400 or $500 to have this valve replaced. Most of the time when you can't turn the water off, they replace this entire valve. It's very expensive. This one here is threaded on 2 fittings, and those fittings are normally soldered onto the copper pipe. That's my preferred method. Threaded fittings, not slip fittings. They have new shark bite type click lock fittings. They're good, they do last, but they're not permanent, and they do start to leak after a while. The easy thing is they're easier to replace. So more plumbers will come out and just swap this out by cutting the pipe on each side and using that slip lock to put in there. So in quick review, if you turn your water off and you got a lot of water coming up the hole, you've spun it 180 degrees, and that drain port here is now lined up to the city water side here. You need to turn it another 180 degrees. That'll stop the leak from happening. If your valve just turns and turns and turns, this cap has come up from roots or rocks or something like that. It needs to be tapped back down again. Sometimes the only way to do that is dig all the way down, pull the cap off, clean all the roots out, put the assembly back together again. So have a good day, and thank you for shopping at Grumpy Joe's.